Before the Super Bowl became America's biggest unofficial holiday, before billion-dollar TV deals, and way before fantasy football took over our Sundays, professional football was fragile. In the early 1900s, the sport itself was controversial, brutal, and incredibly dangerous. Players literally died on the field. Newspapers openly questioned whether football should even exist. And professional football, it wasn't glamorous. It wasn't prestigious. It wasn't respected. College football was the king of the gridiron. Powerhouse programs like Notre Dame and Harvard packed massive stadiums, and their alumni networks turned players into national heroes. But professional players, they were often seen as men who couldn't make it anywhere else. They worked tough factory shifts during the week and played for modest crowds on Sundays. Sometimes they weren't even paid at all. Yet, in 1920, inside a humble automobile showroom in Canton, Ohio, a group of team owners made a decision that would change American culture forever. They created the American Professional Football Association. 2 years later, it would rename itself the National Football League. At the time, almost no one noticed. And honestly, no one expected it to last. The early NFL was not a polished operation. It was pure chaos. There was no draft. There was no unified schedule. Teams just scheduled games independently. Franchises would appear and then vanish within a matter of months. The Akron Pros, the Rock Island Independents, the Muncie Flyers, all names lost to time. Some teams played 10 games in a season. Others played 6. There were no standardized contracts, so players would jump between teams for just a small pay increase. And the attendance, it was wildly unpredictable. On a good Sunday, a few thousand people might show up. On a bad one, there was barely enough money to cover the team's expenses. The league nearly collapsed multiple times during the 1920s. Owners argued constantly, finances were unstable, and the public still saw professional football as a cheap knockoff of the college game. And then came a problem no sports league could easily solve: credibility. The NFL needed legitimacy. It needed a star so undeniable that people would finally have to take professional football seriously. Without one, the league was destined to fade into history as just another failed experiment. Then, in 1925, one of the most famous athletes in America made a decision that shocked the sports world. His name was Red Grange. They called him the Galloping Ghost. At the University of Illinois, he became a national sensation. In one legendary performance against Michigan, he scored 4 touchdowns in just 12 minutes. Newspapers across the country ran banner headlines about his exploits. He wasn't just a college star, he was a full-blown celebrity. And when he signed with the Chicago Bears, it changed everything. At the time, top college players weren't expected to go pro. Professional football was considered beneath the elite athletes of the day. But Grange didn't just join the NFL, he turned it into a spectacle. The Bears immediately launched a nationwide barnstorming tour. They traveled from city to city, playing in massive baseball stadiums, sometimes 2 games in a single week. And the crowds poured in. In New York, more than 70,000 fans packed the Polo Grounds just to see him play. That number was completely unheard of for professional football. Suddenly, the NFL wasn't invisible anymore. It was news. It was profitable. It was legitimate. Red Grange didn't just draw fans. He bought the league time. Time to organize. Time to stabilize. Time to survive. And in those early years, survival was the only goal that mattered. The 1930s brought the Great Depression. Money disappeared overnight, and teams started folding again. But slowly, quietly, the NFL was improving its structure. The league introduced a formal championship game. The rules evolved to encourage more passing, making the game more dynamic and strategic. It was becoming less chaotic. The NFL also began to understand something critical: drama sells. Close games, star players, heated rivalries, these elements weren't accidents. They were the foundation of entertainment. By the 1940s, football was cleaner and more organized, but it still wasn't America's dominant sport. Baseball was king. Boxing commanded the headlines. College football still held most of the prestige. The NFL needed a defining moment, and that moment would arrive in 1958 on a cold December afternoon inside Yankee Stadium. December 28, 1958, the NFL championship game. The Baltimore Colts versus the New York Giants. Millions watched on television, which itself was becoming a powerful new force in American homes. This mattered. Late in the fourth quarter, the Giants were in the lead. The Colts needed a drive. Quarterback Johnny Unitas walked into the huddle, calm and focused. He called the plays with quiet authority. Pass after pass, the Colts moved down the field. They tied the game. And for the first time in championship history, there would be sudden death over time. The tension was unbearable. Every single snap felt monumental. The Colts drove methodically down the field. Closer and closer they got. And then, fullback Alan Almesh plunged into the end zone. Touchdown. The final score, 23-17. The stadium erupted. Television audiences across the country were stunned. The drama, the intensity, the sheer spectacle of it all, it became known as the greatest game ever played. But it was more than that. It was the day professional football truly began its journey to surpass baseball in the American imagination. Television executives saw the massive ratings. Advertisers saw a golden opportunity. The NFL finally had momentum, and this time, it wouldn't let go. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the history of sports.